The former president and the GOP frontrunner, and we note once again that none of the campaigns have input into who was invited, what the questions are that will be asked tonight.
Thank you for being here, Mr. President. We appreciate you making the track. And before we begin, we want to offer our condolences to you and the former First Lady Melania Trump for the loss of her mother last night.
Thank you very much. Great moment. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We do want to note that today there was some breaking campaign news. Take a listen.
It's clear to me tonight that there isn't a path for me to win the nomination, which is why I'm suspending my campaign tonight for President of the United States. I'm going to make sure that in no way do I enable Donald Trump to ever be President of the United States again.
So that was the big news. Late today, the former governor of New Jersey dropped out of the race in New Hampshire. You saw it there. There's a lot of speculation now that there could be a combining of forces of the people who supported him. He had about 12% there. And by some estimates, you're ahead by an average of 14 in the Real Clear Politics average polling in New Hampshire. So if that 12 goes to Nikki Haley, she could give you a run for your money there.
Well, you know, you have Democrats in New Hampshire, and they vote, and you have independents in New Hampshire in large numbers, and they vote. And I have polls that show me leading by a tremendous amount in New Hampshire, and a lot in Iowa, and nationwide we're leading by almost 60 points. So I'm not exactly worried about it. I understand New Hampshire very well. I won it twice and did very well with New Hampshire. I love the people. They love me, I think. We did a good job for New Hampshire economically, and even from the standpoint of the military taking care of the vets. And I think we're going to do very well in New Hampshire. Now, you know, Chris Christie was in, and he got a hot mic I heard about. I thought actually the bigger story wasn't the fact that he dropped out. Nobody cared too much about that, but he had a hot mic where he was talking to somebody about the weather, and he happened to say that she doesn't have what it takes. She'll be creamed in the election. And I mean, I know her very well, and I happen to believe that Chris Christie's right. That's one of the few things he's been right about, actually.
So you don't think it changes the dynamic much?
I don't know if it does or not. Look, we're winning tremendously here. I think we're 24 points up. I brought some polls if you wanted to see them, you know, just in case. But I think we're 25 points up. But New Hampshire's interesting. It's a great place, a great state, unbelievable people. But they allow independents and Democrats to vote in the Republican primary. You say, what's that all about? So it's a little bit false in that regard. But even with that, I think we'll win substantially.
Mr. President, we want to get to our first questioner. Robert is an optometrist from Ankeny. Robert, where are you? Do you know which way you're going to caucus on Monday?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can we ask you?
I'm going to vote for the third time for President Trump.
Oh, I like him.
I knew I liked Robert. What's your question to the former president?
I just want to say also thank you, President Trump, for your support of the vets. My wife and I and my oldest son are all veterans of the United States Army. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Some of my friends that supported you in 2020 are not this time because they believe a Trump presidency will bring 4 years of chaos due to your haters. What is your response to them?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm glad you're asking the question, and I'm very glad that you started off by saying you're with me, because I want you on my side. I figured maybe Fox would have written that question if it was just the second part of the question. But just so you understand...
We didn't write any of the questions. You all wrote the questions, just to be clear.
We'll figure that one out pretty soon. But they have chaos now. They have chaos at the border. They have chaos in the military. People are going woke. We have the greatest military in the world, except for the top, where they want to, you know, turn this beautiful thing we beat ISIS, knocked them out. It was supposed to take 4 years. I did it in literally 3 months. It was supposed to take 4 or 5 years. But we have chaos now. Look at today with Hunter Biden going into Congress and just sitting down, and the bedlam that's been caused. Today you have chaos. We have, I think, more with Joe Biden. He can't put 2 sentences together, and he's representing us on nuclear weapons with Putin and Xi and all of these very smart people. The media hates when I say they're smart, but let me tell you, they're very smart and they're very cunning. And I think he had very little chaos. I think most of the chaos was caused by the Democrats constantly going after me. And remember this. Remember that with phony, Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, 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 everything was phony. The FISA warrants, the lying to Congress. They had chaos. They were the ones that caused the chaos. We didn't have chaos. We got the biggest tax cuts in history, the biggest regulation cuts in history. I had no wars. I'm the only president in 72 years. I didn't have any wars. And they love that narrative, but they use that narrative because they have nothing else. Now, the new narrative they have, as you know, is I'm going to be a dictator. That's going to be the new narrative because a guy like Biden, there's nothing he can run on. Everything he's turned out, it's turned out badly. The border is a disaster, the worst border in history. I think the worst border in the history of the world. We had the best border in the history of our country. We never had a border like that. So I think we had very little chaos. I think we had tremendous success. And frankly, until COVID came along, and then we did a great job on that too. We never got the kind of credit that I got on the economy, but we had the greatest economy in history. And you take a look at our numbers. The numbers were so much better than they are right now. We had no inflation. We were energy independent. We had so much energy. We were ready to start supplying energy, selling energy to Europe, Asia. We would have started to pay down our debt. And then when COVID came along, we had to do a little bit of a course change. But we had an incredible 4 years. Again, the greatest economy in the history of our country with no inflation. Pretty good.
So I just want to follow up. Yeah, thank you for your service and for your question. Thank you for being here tonight. One of the things that Ron DeSantis said in a town hall this week was that it might feel good to Republicans to vote for you and support you in the primary, but he felt they shouldn't leave the general election potentially up to 12 jurors in a D.C. court. What do you say to him about that?
Well, it's a witch hunt by its weaponization. If you look at it, it's election interference by Biden because he can't win it fair and square, so he's doing that. And interestingly, you see what happened in Georgia with Fannie Willis and $1 million almost to her boyfriend as the prosecutor of Trump. That one's blown up now. It's horrible what has taken place. But it's very interesting when you look at Ron's numbers. He's practically out of the race. In fact, a lot of people say he's leaving the race after Iowa because he's doing so poorly. He's also doing very poorly, as you know, in New Hampshire. I mean, really poorly. And I'm leading Biden in every single poll that's been taken over the last month or two. Like, you see one, I'm leading in Michigan by 11. That's great. The auto workers are smart. They know that Biden has sold them down the tubes with the electric cars, all electric car mandate, the craziest thing I've ever heard. And they're going to all be made in China too. So I think when you look at what we've done, we are doing a great job, and we did a great job, and that's why I'm leading in the polls by 60 and 70 points.
You know, in recent days, you seem to issue a warning that if in the courts, and even the U.S. Supreme Court, if they didn't treat you fairly, that maybe there would be bedlam in the country. Use that word, bedlam in the country. And in the last 2 days, at the same time, in the last two speeches, President Biden is focusing his campaign on the threat to democracy and political violence. Take this.
I'll say what Donald Trump won't. Political violence is never, ever acceptable in the United States political system. Never, never, never.
All right, so to Robert's question, this is clearly a focus of the Biden campaign. So can you say tonight that political violence is never acceptable?
Well, of course that's right. And of course, I'm the one that had very little of it. Take a look at wars. Again, I didn't start, I wasn't involved in wars. We beat the hell out of ISIS. We won 100%. We brought our troops back home. Look at the violence that we've had. Look at the violence we have recently.
Right, but when you say bedlam, what do you mean?
I think you say bedlam. I think you look at Joe Biden's bedlam. You have a man who can't lead. You have a man who can't find his way off a stage after he makes a speech that lasts for about 2 minutes. Now, I think bedlam is Joe Biden. I think that he's using this. This is just a political ploy. Trump is a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. You know, it's interesting. I did a show, Sean Hannity. Did you ever hear of him? He's a very nice man. And he said essentially, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? Tell me. I think he was trying to give me a nicer question than maybe you guys, but he meant it very well. I said, I'm going to be a dictator for 1 day. We're going to do two things, the border We're gonna make it so tight you can't get in unless you come in legally. And the other is energy. We're gonna drill, baby, drill. After that, I'm not gonna be a dictator. After that, I'm not gonna be a dictator.
So you weren't saying
No, and the press picks it up. So I said, I'm going to be a dictator for one day. They cut it. They go, I'm going to be a dictator. But they cut the rest of the sentence. No. I am not going to be a dictator. I'm going to manage like we did. We were so successful that the country was coming together. It was actually coming together and coming together well. It was a beautiful thing to see. And we're going to do that again.
All right, let's bring
By the
in.
way, that's why I have the poll numbers that I have, because the people, I think this audience is an example. I mean, I asked a question. I said, how many people came last night? How many people came the night before? And I got a very honest answer. Not many compared to what we have. We had a great crowd and have a great crowd.
We want to hear from some more of them.
We do have a big crowd tonight. That's absolutely true. So let's hear from Jane Jack, who is a teacher from Rhodes, Iowa. Jane, thank you so much for being here. And you said that you plan to caucus for DeSantis, but you're not completely decided. Is that right?
No, I will be caucusing for DeSantis. But I will say, Mr. President, I am extremely grateful that in your first term, you accomplished so many great things, but it was also with the help of many great people. Since that time, you have publicly criticized and personally demeaned so many of them. If you're given 4 more years, how will you convince good people to take the risk of working with you?
So I have a lot of people that want to work with me. I have people calling just as I'm getting on the stage. I had a call from 2 of the very most important people in the military who want to come to work for me. Everybody wants to come to work for us. We're going to have no trouble. We had great people. We had a couple that were not great, stiffs, as I would call them. But that's true with anybody. But now I've gotten to know Washington. I've gotten to know the people. I know the best. I know the smart ones, the dumb ones, the weak ones, the strong ones. And I think you're going to see something like you've never seen before. And the people in this room know it. We did an amazing job. And the reason, we have support is because of the job we did. Now, you like Ron DeSantis, but he wouldn't even be around today. He'd be working in a pizza shop or perhaps a law firm if I didn't endorse him. I endorsed him, took him from nothing to winning an election. And I was all for him. And then one day he said he'd run against me 4 years later after I got him in. And I said, that's not a loyal person. We can't have that. That's not a loyal person. So I think you'll be very impressed with what we're going to do. We're going to have the greatest economy in the world, which we don't right now. We have horrible, horrible inflation. And you're never going to get that 30% down. You might even it, but you're not going to get it down. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Let me just ask you a follow-up on that about who would be in your cabinet, in your administration. If you are the nominee, which I know you expect to be, who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with
Oh,
any
sure,
of them?
I will. I've already started to like Christie better.
Christie for vice president?
I don't see it. That would be an upset. Christie for vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce.
I do want to get to this other question before we move on to big issues, and that is Jacqueline. She is from West Des Moines, and I think you said you're undecided, or you're making your decision.
That's correct.
And do you have a couple people that you're looking at?
Trump and Vivek.
Okay, good. And what's your question tonight for the former president?
My question is, I would like to know, what do you plan to do in your next term that you didn't quite get finished during your first term?
Well, one of the things would be energy, even though I set records on energy, but I was going to be energy dominant. We were energy independent, and we had your bills down low. We had the gasoline for the car down to $1.87 a gallon. We had it down even lower than that at some points. Now it's at $4 and $5, and that's not acceptable. Your home heating bills are 4 and 5 times higher than they were with me. So I'd be doing that. I'd finish up the wall. We built over 500 miles of wall. That's one of the reasons we had the great, and we got Mexico, by the way. We got Mexico, very importantly, to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. That's more money than anybody can even imagine, free of charge. And we also remain in Mexico policy, not remain here, remain in Mexico. So we did a lot of great things, and I would just say we're going to just keep expanding. We rebuilt the military. We even did something that hopefully nobody in this room needs, but right to try, where we're able to use space-age medicines that won't be approved for 4 or 5 years that worked in many cases. And I saved thousands and thousands of lives with right to try. Thank you very much.
So we take a quick break. We're going to go talk about the economy when we come back. That is the #1 issue in every poll on voters' minds. So join us when we come right back with lots more questions for President Trump. Good to have you here, sir.